She used to fall asleep tangled in my arms. Now she sleeps with her back to me, earplugs in, phone under the pillow, and both feet planted firmly on her side of the bed like I'm contagious. Last night, I counted the seconds between her fake breaths. You know the kind, those exaggerated, dramatic exhalations that people do when they want you to think they're asleep. I reached for her shoulder, gently, just to check. She flinched like I'd touched a burner. "Don't," she whispered. Eyes still shut. "No touching me today." No argument. No context. Just those 5 words. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, memorizing the shadows. And I realized I wasn't sharing a bed with my wife. I was sharing a mattress with a stranger who wanted less contact than people in a dentist waiting room. At 3:16 a.m., I got up. At 3:21 a.m., I opened her drawer and found it. Not what I was looking for, but something worse. A receipt. Not for clothes, not for groceries. For a hotel room. 2 nights ago. 1 king bed. 2 guests. No luggage. No apologies. Just a line at the bottom. Late checkout confirmed. I sat at the kitchen table until sunrise, receipt in hand, like it was some sacred scroll. My coffee went cold 3 times. I didn't move. She came down just after 7 a.m., eyes puffy but dry. She looked at me like I was a misplaced chair, something in the wrong spot, vaguely annoying, but not worth addressing. She poured herself orange juice, sipped, and said, "Don't start. I'm not in the mood." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She left her glass in the sink, grabbed her tote bag, and walked out the door, wearing the same blouse from that receipt's date, still with the hotel key card poking out of the side pocket. I didn't go to work. I couldn't. I kept staring at that key card in her tote bag like it was a detonator, and I didn't know what it was wired to. I wasn't even sure why I didn't confront her right away. Maybe because some part of me still wanted to be wrong. Maybe because I didn't want to see the look on her face when I asked about it, the indifference, the inevitable lie, the absence of guilt. Or maybe I knew something deeper. Whatever this was, it had already been happening for a long time. I was just the last to find out. She didn't text me all day. Not once. I heard the garbage truck, the mail carrier, even the neighbor's dog that always barked at birds like they owed it money, but nothing from her. The silence felt like a verdict. Around 4 p.m., I did something I've never done in our marriage. I went into her car. Not with a crowbar. No dramatics. Just walked out to the driveway and opened the passenger door like I was looking for a lost receipt. I wasn't even sure what I expected to find. What I found. A pair of black flats under the seat. Scuffed. Definitely worn. But not her size. Half a size smaller. Someone else's. Then a folded napkin in the glove box. From a bar across town I didn't even know she'd ever been to. 2 hearts drawn in ink. Her name. Another name I didn't recognize. A little arrow through the middle like this was high school and not a woman in her 30s lying to her husband. But what really got me, what genuinely made my hands go cold, was a parking stub tucked into the sun visor. Dated from 3 weeks ago. Same hotel as the receipt. Same name on the stub. So that wasn't the first time. It was at least the 3rd. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the couch like I was afraid to contaminate it with the truth. My cat jumped onto my lap, purring without a care in the world, as if I hadn't just seen physical proof that the life I thought I had was a lie wrapped in neutral paint and throw pillows. At 6:12 p.m., the garage opened. Her car rolled in like it always had. Door slammed. Keys jingled. Purse dropped onto the counter. I didn't even look at her when she came into the living room. She asked, casually, "You eat?" I shook my head. Not hungry. She was halfway through scrolling her phone again before she responded. "Suit yourself." No hug. No kiss. No, "How was your day?" Nothing. I could have been a potted plant. Less, maybe. At least plants get watered. She sat across from me like everything was normal. Like I hadn't seen the evidence, hadn't found the stub, hadn't counted the little hearts on the napkin like they were tally marks on a prison wall. I should have said something. I should have screamed. I should have asked who he was, where they met, how long she'd been cheating, but I didn't. All I said was, "Melissa, why earplugs?" She blinked, confused for half a second. "What?" "Last night," I said. "I saw them. You used to hate sleeping with anything in your ears. You said it made you feel disconnected." She paused, then shrugged. "I sleep better now." That was it. No curiosity about how I knew. No concern that I'd noticed. Just a flat answer, like I'd asked about laundry detergent or weather. She stood up and left the room. And I knew right then, she didn't care if I knew. She wasn't hiding anything anymore. Because she didn't see me as someone worth hiding it from. She had already moved on. She just hadn't bothered to inform me yet. But tomorrow, she'd find out exactly how wrong she was about that. That night, I stayed in bed early. Not because I was tired, but because I wanted her to think I was asleep when she came in. For the first time in my life, I became the thing I hated most, a man quietly listening through the dark, hoping not to hear the very thing he already knew. Melissa came home at 10:23 p.m. I remember the time because I watched the numbers change on the alarm clock like a countdown. She didn't turn on the light. That wasn't for my sake. It was habit now. She didn't want to wake me. Or maybe, more likely, she didn't want to see me. Avoiding eye contact even in the dark, that takes practice. She moved slowly through the room, kicked off her shoes, then sat on the edge of the bed. I could hear her breathing. Hesitant, but not the way people breathe after a long day. This was different. Like she wasn't sure if she should be there. I expected silence. But what I heard instead made my pulse slow to a crawl. She whispered, so low I could barely make it out. I'm sorry, okay? I can't leave him yet. He's still here. It'll make things worse. Just wait. I'm figuring it out. It took me a full 10 seconds to understand she wasn't talking to me. She was on the phone. She had her AirPods in. I cracked one eye just enough to see the soft glow of her screen lighting up her face. Her lips barely moved. She was trying to stay quiet. I stayed completely still, barely breathing. The other voice wasn't audible, just the faintest buzz on the line, but I could tell they were frustrated. She answered quickly, as if trying to calm them. I know, but I can't blow this up right now. Not until the payout clears. No, he doesn't suspect anything. He's too. She stopped herself. Too what? Too trusting? Too blind? Too small for her world now? She paused again and then whispered the next sentence so softly I almost missed it. You're the only real thing I have left. I felt something in me collapse. Not anger, yet. Not panic, yet. Just this deep, hollow realization that the woman lying next to me wasn't mine anymore. And maybe hadn't been for a long time. Then came the sound that hit harder than all of it. A laugh. A short, breathy, private laugh she used to save for our late-night talks. The one she made when she felt safe. That laugh used to be mine. Now it belonged to someone else. She hung up, rolled over, slid her phone under her pillow like it was a secret, and fell asleep. Facing the wall, I stayed still for over an hour. And then, when I finally got up, I didn't turn on the light. I didn't cry. I didn't even touch her. I just walked out into the hallway, shut the door behind me as gently as I could, and opened my laptop. If she was figuring it out, then so was I. Only my version didn't involve hiding. It involved documenting everything. I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I sat at the kitchen table all night, laptop open, heart racing like it was late for something. I knew the passwords. She hadn't changed them in years. Melissa was careful, but not careful enough for a man who'd spent every sleepless night in the last 2 months trying to guess where the cracks in his marriage started. Her email was a quiet battlefield. Not the kind filled with love notes or steamy confessions. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it was cold, sterile, logistics, reservations, shared calendars that didn't include me, invoices under fake names, and one folder that turned my stomach, June reset. It was filled with draft letters, legal templates, a resume she never told me about, and correspondence with a realtor. Not in our town, not even in our state. She was planning a move, a life elsewhere. Without me. One email in particular made my skin go cold. It was dated 3 weeks ago. Subject line, exit strategy. The sender was just initials CB. But the language was unmistakably intimate. Not romantic. Strategic. I talked to the consultant. He says once the transfer is finalized, the joint account will update. The moment it does, we need to move fast. You can't risk emotional interference. Stay cold, stay detached. He'll follow the script because he thinks you're just stressed. They always do. I must have read that email 10 times. Each word a bullet. I had never felt less like a human being and more like a technicality. I wasn't a person in her plan. I was an obstacle. Something to get past without raising alarm. Stay cold, stay detached. Was that what I'd seen in her eyes for the last few months? Was it all rehearsed? I opened our online banking. I knew the balance. Or thought I did. Turns out, I hadn't checked it since the week after Christmas. That was a mistake. Because what I found wasn't just disturbing, it was surgical. 12 withdrawals. Just under reporting limits. Spread across 3 months. all logged as authorized bill pay, but none of them matched our actual expenses. Every dollar funneled into a secondary account I hadn't known existed until now. In her name only. In total, $62,000. Gone. The worst part? She'd made it look like I approved it. Signed documents I never saw. Confirmed changes via a phone number I didn't recognize. And the transfer? Scheduled for Monday. Which meant I had exactly 3 days left before everything I worked for vanished with a woman who wouldn't even make eye contact with me anymore. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I couldn't say anything. Not yet. She needed to think I was still asleep. Still pretending. Still that clueless husband who believed her late nights were real and her distance was just stress. She needed to believe I hadn't seen the blueprint. Because what I was about to do next would only work once. Saturday came without warning. I sat at the dining table while Melissa moved through the house like she didn't even live there. She hummed. She actually hummed a song. The same song she used to sing when we painted this house together years ago, back when love wasn't just an echo. She made coffee like it was any other day, didn't ask why I was up early, didn't even glance at me. She kissed the cat on the head but didn't touch me. And that was the moment I knew. She wasn't just preparing to leave. She'd already left emotionally, and now she was trying to leave financially, physically, legally, quietly. All she needed was 3 more days. She had no idea I was tracking her now. I'd installed a voice recorder app on an old phone I found in our drawer, one we hadn't used in years. It still powered on. Still worked. I left it on the shelf in our laundry room, angled toward the back hallway where she always took calls. It wasn't much, but I didn't need much. I just needed one thread to pull. That afternoon, while she was out buying gifts for her sister's baby shower, the same shower that apparently required wearing heels and perfect eyeliner, I retrieved the phone. One audio file. 14 minutes. I didn't even sit down to listen. I stood in the kitchen like a man about to touch an electric fence. Her voice filled the room. It was calm. Too calm. No, he's still clueless. I can't believe how easy it's been. Honestly, I thought I'd have to cry or fake some dramatic story. But he just faded. There was a pause. The male voice on the line, deep, confident, arrogant, muttered something I couldn't quite catch. Then she laughed. That same laugh again. The one that used to be mine. She continued, "No, I didn't tell him about us. Not yet. Why risk it? I get the transfer finalized Monday, we close on the place Tuesday, and I ghost him by Wednesday. He won't even know what hit him. He'll just think it was burnout or stress or whatever excuse passive men like him tell themselves to avoid facing the truth." Another pause. Then she said it. "I stopped loving him over a year ago. He just didn't notice. I stopped the recording. Couldn't breathe. Stopped loving me over a year ago." And she was right. I didn't notice. I made her coffee. I warmed her car on cold mornings. I fixed the front door when it stuck. I gave her space. I didn't yell, didn't accuse, didn't pry. I gave her every benefit of the doubt because that's what love is supposed to do. But she took that love, turned it into a weapon, and used it to walk out the front door. By now, you might expect I'd scream, confront her, kick her out, demand justice. But the truth is far quieter. I just stood there, staring at the phone in my hand, realizing that everything I'd been holding on to, every hope, every excuse, was built on silence. And now that silence had spoken. She was already gone. She just hadn't figured out yet that I'd heard her leave. Sunday morning came, and for the first time in years, I didn't ask her if she wanted coffee. I made one for myself. Black. No sugar. I didn't look at her when she passed behind me on the way to the bathroom. She didn't speak. It was like we were 2 people occupying the same house on 2 different planets. She left the house at 10:34 a.m., said she was getting groceries for the week. No list. No reusable bags. Just keys, purse, and her phone gripped a little too tightly. I watched her through the window, walking to her car in her favorite boots, the ones she always said were too expensive to wear casually. Funny, considering she claimed to be frugal lately. Claimed we had to cut back. Claimed we needed to save smart. I wasn't planning to follow her, but my hand moved on its own. I grabbed my jacket, my own keys, and left 30 seconds after she did. Not fast enough for her to notice, not slow enough to lose her. I kept back a few cars as she drove through the suburbs, across town, then deeper into the industrial area I didn't know she even knew existed. She pulled into a parking garage near an upscale apartment complex I'd never seen before, brand new, glass balconies, valet entrance. No grocery store in sight. I parked across the street, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I waited. 3 minutes passed. Then he showed up. A man in a charcoal coat, clean-shaven, about my age, but dressed like he hadn't washed a dish in a decade. Melissa met him at the curb, hugged him, not like lovers in a movie, not with passion, but with comfort. Like they'd done it 100 times. Like they'd grown used to it. They didn't speak long. Just enough to confirm something. She handed him a slim envelope, white, unmarked, and he kissed her on the cheek. Then he nodded and walked away, disappearing into the complex. She stood there for a second, looked around, then turned back toward her car. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was funding his life. All the money she took? It wasn't for a future alone. It was for him. And suddenly, everything made a cruel kind of sense. The payout, she mentioned, the transfers, the ghosting plan. She wasn't escaping to start fresh. She was paying her way out of our life and into his. And I was the bank she was robbing in slow motion. I didn't follow her home. I didn't need to. Instead, I took a detour. Drove around for almost an hour until my breath evened out. Until I could stop gripping the wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. Then I went to a place I hadn't been in years, the notary office downtown. It was Sunday, closed, but I knew the owner. We went to high school together. I texted him and asked if he could meet me there in the morning before hours. Depends what it's for, he replied. I wrote back. Everything. It's for everything. And I meant it. Monday wasn't going to be the day she got her final transfer. Monday was going to be the day I made sure she never touched another dollar with my name on it again. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to threaten. I was just going to be gone. Completely. With nothing left behind but a silence louder than any argument she'd ever try to start. I spent that night in the guest bedroom. Not because I needed space, but because I finally admitted to myself that I no longer belonged in the master one. The bed we used to share had become a stage, and I had been sleeping in a role I didn't audition for, the silent placeholder. The uninformed extra. The man who stayed behind so her double life could feel normal. I didn't pack anything yet. I didn't need to. I wasn't running. I was just watching the collapse from the inside now, still in my own house, but suddenly able to see every crack in the walls that had always been there. I just hadn't looked closely enough. In the early hours, I opened an old drawer. Inside were things we used to write to each other. Notes on napkins. Grocery list with tiny hearts. A plane ticket from our honeymoon. I ran my fingers across each one like they were relics of a religion I no longer practiced. And then, for some reason I still don't understand, I walked into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. Not for a second or two, but long enough to feel like I was looking at someone else entirely. Someone who knew the truth but kept pretending he didn't. Someone who gave too many chances. Someone who accepted silence as compromise. Someone who thought love meant never asking questions. I didn't see a victim in that mirror. I saw a volunteer. And that realization? That was worse than any betrayal she could have planned. Because I had handed her the silence she needed to leave me without resistance. She just took it. The next morning came quietly. She made coffee. I didn't say a word. She talked to the cat. I didn't look up. She left for work, early, as usual, with her client meeting and her carefully pressed smile. She didn't even notice that the ring she stopped wearing months ago was back on the nightstand. I had left it there, facing up. At exactly 9:12 a.m., I stepped into the notary's office. My old friend Brad, who I hadn't seen since graduation, looked at me like I'd just come back from war. He didn't ask questions. Just slid the documents in front of me. Identity confirmation. Power of attorney separation. Emergency fund lockout. Authorization for withdrawal review. Quiet. Precise. Paper revenge. As I signed each page, a strange calm came over me. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Just closure. This wasn't a moment of revenge. This was the closing of a door that had been left ajar for too long, letting cold wind crawl into my chest every night. By 11 a.m., I had changed my email passwords, frozen the joint accounts, resecured my retirement profile, and removed my name from the lease she thought we'd be signing together on Tuesday. Turns out, she hadn't noticed that I had access to the emails her agent forwarded. She'd be arriving for a Keysan signature appointment that no longer existed. And when the agent said, "Oh, your husband canceled this morning," I knew exactly the expression she'd make. But she wouldn't call me. Because calling meant confrontation. And confrontation required respect. Melissa had long stopped seeing me as someone worth confronting. That was her greatest mistake. because I'd already disappeared from her story before she realized I was writing the final page. Monday felt like any other day on the surface. Melissa walked into the house just after 5. I was already gone, but I knew what she'd see first. The lights were on, but the living room was empty. The table where I usually sat, untouched. No shoes by the door. No jacket on the chair. No coffee mug. Just silence. And on the kitchen counter, a single, cream-colored envelope with her name written in my handwriting. Inside was nothing dramatic. No threats, no insults, no confessions. Just a printed list. Every transaction. Every lie. Every withdrawal. Highlighted. Documented. Chronological. With a line at the bottom. You can keep the story. I'm keeping the peace. I left her everything I didn't want anymore. My silence, my patience, and every object in that house that reminded me of the man I had let myself become for her comfort. But I took with me what mattered. Not revenge. Not justice. Freedom. She tried to call me that night. Once. I didn't answer. Not because I was punishing her, but because there was nothing left to say. The version of me she used to manipulate, the one who asked, "Is something wrong?" even when everything was burning, that man was gone. Instead, I sat in a rented studio across town, surrounded by quiet. Not the hollow quiet of tension and distance, but the real kind. The kind that comes when you finally stop asking for love from someone who already gave it away. I heard later through a mutual friend that Melissa was stunned. That she told people I just walked away without fighting for her. That she didn't understand why I didn't demand answers. She still hadn't figured it out. When someone lies to you long enough, the truth stops hurting. It just becomes irrelevant. It wasn't the betrayal that broke me. It was the months I spent pretending not to see it. That was the cost. That was the wound. But it healed. Not because she apologized. She never did. It healed because I finally realized that no amount of begging, proving, or waiting would have made someone like her choose me again. She wasn't confused. She wasn't torn. She had chosen the exit. All I did was open the door and walk through it, without a sound,